It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order the March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Norton Finance Committee. Take a quick attendance. Kevin? Not here yet. Steve?
Here.
Tracy?
Yep.
Sandy?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Paul?
Here.
Cody?
Here.
Zach?
Here.
Bonnie?
Here.
I am here. All right. Hello, Mr. Units.
Good evening.
Good evening. Before we get into the individual budgets or the agenda, could we take a quick look at the revenues and expenditures sheet that you sent us showing the 4% increases, Mike?
Sure.
I just want to have a quick discussion on this. All right, here it is. So Mike, towards the bottom there, you know, where you show like the general government increase, the school increase. So for the spring of 2023, we approved a 2% increase for the town side. I think it was 1.9. But then with the collective bargaining articles in the spring and the fall, and you know, the 1 million plus of supplements in the fall, that actually ends up being a 7.7% increase, correct?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
So it was a 7.7% increase. So I guess my question to you is, like, we're looking at 4.4 right now, but if you have items that we typically be factoring into the budget in the fall, like overtime and different things that typically we see every year, that we wait to see what we get in free cash to factor into the budget in the fall, can we at least have a list of these items to kind of factor into our minds right now as we're looking at these percentage increases and your recommendations with your recommendations?
Yes,
That way
sure.
we can really see like an actual percentage increase, because if we're going along in the spring thinking, oh, the town side's only going to get 2% when they're actually going to end up getting more for FY25, if we're going to be giving, you know, these supplemental operating budget items in the fall, it'd be good for us to see that big picture now with your recommendations.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. And I met with the chair and vice chair of the select board and the chair and vice chair of the school committee and the superintendent, and we'll be looking at 3% for each of us, so it'll be a little less.
3%. So right now it's saying like 800, what is it saying? 850,000 from ambulance receipts. Can you foresee that could increase?
I do. We'll have to increase that. We'll have to increase free cash, and we'll have to talk about using some stabilization.
And increasing the ambulance receipts, using stabilization, increasing free cash more than the 700,000.
Yeah.
Would that still only bring us for the 3% across the board increase?
Yes.
Okay. Can you show us, like, can you send us that new revenue expenditure sheet? Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions on this?
Yeah, Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Mike, I got the same, the 7.7% that Paula got. That's why I had asked you about why the numbers, my numbers were a little bit off when I was adding fall and spring. And you had explained it was because of the collective bargaining agreements, correct?
Correct.
And so I guess I'm wondering, that if that 7.7 is really sustainable, like we've now increased our base, and made a huge jump last year in the government, general government side. Is that going to be a big impact? I would think this year, as we start to look at now adding on to that.
That's why, in discussion with the chiefs today, they realize they may not be seeing all their overtime back this year.
And do you have any idea what the total free cash is that we're gonna end up spending? I know we have a good chunk left over. I know last year was the highest year of free cash. So are we gonna be spending a lot of that down, or what's your estimate right now for how much free cash?
We have 1.7 million in free cash. So we'll be looking at that this week to see what we can put into capital, and then what we'll have for the budget also.
Yeah, I think there's been a little bit of panic in the. I mean, we know things are bad, right? But I think when the message got out that we were going to be potentially not even level funding our budgets, that certainly that caused a lot of panic, and that would be obviously catastrophic. So we're. I think that the sooner we can get out the message that that's not the case, that we are going to be seeing increases, certainly not level services, but increases over what we had last year, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And Mike, that fixed and shared number there, that 20,987,140, that, do you foresee that increasing? Is that fixed right now?
I believe that is set right now. I don't see that we'll have any changes.
All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach, I think.
So, Mike, if we use stabilization funds, and I'm not sure what number you're thinking, what's the plan to replenish it? Because I don't see the budgets changing unless you have, something around next year, you expect additional revenues. How do you replenish it? Are we just kicking the can down the road to the fall?
I think what we're doing is, last year we used quite a bit of money, as you can see from the 1.9 in free cash and the 707 in stabilization. So this year we have to make somewhat of a correction, and then next year we'll probably have to do the same. I mean, we're not going to be looking at budgets higher than 3% probably.
But you still have no way of replenishing the stabilization money used, is what you're saying?
Well, we will have some free cash, so we can use some of that to put something back, depending on how much we use.
And I assume even with the 3% increase that's now being announced, there's still going to be some layoffs, whether it's on the school side, town side, whatever it may be. And as you mentioned in the past, the town doesn't carry unemployment benefits. So where is that figured into the budget?
We have a line item for unemployment.
Is that being increased?
I will look at it right now. We haven't. And we'll look at, I'll talk with the superintendent. We'll see what we have for layoffs, and see if we have to increase that, or if we can wait until October to see who doesn't get a job and still on unemployment.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
Mike, it sounds like you're assuming that all the cuts are going to be made at the school level. Has anyone from any of the departments been made aware of potential cuts?
They have.
Because you only mentioned the schools, that's why I'm just wondering.
No, I said I'll be meeting with the superintendent and we will discuss our cuts and layoffs.
Okay. Sorry, misunderstood.
Yeah.
Mike, quick question too, because I saw you responded, because I think it might have been Cody who asked about how we're investing the stabilization funds, because OPEB looked like it was growing at a quicker rate than stabilization in the account, and then OPEB is, we use the prudent investor, but not for stabilization. Can we use that for stabilization too?
We can't,
We can't, okay.
by law, we're not allowed to.
Oh, okay. All right.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
yes, Bill.
Mike. Maybe it's just me. But I've been asking this easily for 7 years. And I keep getting, yeah, we're working on it. But, you know, where I come from, we work with projections. And we see a couple of years of what's coming down the pike versus this 1 year that we're seeing today. And then out in the, you know, atmosphere here, we talk about what might be happening after. Why can't we get projections that show me a couple of years that builds in, you know, here's our labor costs. These are what they're doing year in and year out based on what we've agreed on. Here are other costs that we know of. Here's our debt schedule. Oh, it's going to go up. Oh, it's going to go down because we paid off stuff. Why is that so difficult to get?
We can do that for you for a couple of
I've been
years.
asking for 7 years. This isn't funny anymore.
We did it before. It wasn't that long ago. Wasn't
It
7
was
years
very-
ago. We did a
It was
five.
very rudimentary. But, you know, you're asking us to make these decisions. You're asking us as a town, whether it's those who have been elected or those who volunteer, to get out a message and educate townspeople. I don't think we have the information to do that. That's my personal opinion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
can I just, not to follow on, but can I just add to what Bill said? You know, my other pet peeve is, I hear, as long as I've been in this committee, is contractual obligations. That's the key word. Not only the town government, but the school department is just as guilty of it. Contractual obligations. So the school department goes into executive session, the board of selectmen go into executive session for subject of negotiating contracts. And then somehow, abracadabra, they come up with 5%, 6%, with what basis, only God knows, what basis are they negotiating with when we're under Prop 2.5? That I will never understand. We close the doors, shut off the lights, and it's almost like a backroom deal, I mean, under executive session, with money we don't have. And then the next year, well, contractual obligations, they have steps at this. How do you negotiate with money you don't have? It's beyond my comprehension. And I've been running businesses since I was 25 years old. And I got 100 people on my payroll. If I ever ran a business like municipal government runs, I'd be homeless. And I'll get off my soapbox now, Madam Chair.
Mike, just quick question. Try to remind me of the timeline for like the union contracts. Does that happens before Springtown meeting, correct? Is it happening before we're getting your recommendations?
The contracts are all settled now.
When does that usually happen though? Like those?
Some happened before the May town meeting and some happened before the October town meeting.
Okay. Okay, anyone else before we start to delve into these budgets that have way more than a 3% increase?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
Just a point on stabilization. Last year when we talked about, pulling 700,000 to put into that, it was a one-off. Like, there were unanticipated mandates coming from the state that weren't foreseen, and it was a one-off band-aid to try and help us get over that hump. I don't think that there's any conversation that we're going to have tonight where I'm going to agree that we are pulling from stabilization fund for ongoing expenses. Like flat out, there's a line in the sand. We should not be having discussions about funding ongoing expenses from non-recurring revenues. There's no way that we should be talking about free cash. No way we should be talking about stabilization when we are talking about annual expenses and reoccurring budget items.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
I mean, Cody, I agree with the premise that we keep digging ourselves in a little bit deeper and deeper, but I also don't think that we should go cold turkey on a free cash perspective, where that's what we've been doing for so many years. To now cut that out, we would be looking at, less than level funding, budgets being cut. I think if we want to wean off and talk about, policy, bigger policy discussions, I think that's something that I would love to have a discussion about. I know we have that sort of a draft of a financial policy, but we never really revisited that. It would, I think, be helpful to revisit that, and to talk about weaning back. But so I would be opposed to just cutting back and just cold turkey, losing all that, because we've put ourselves into this position. I think it would be irresponsible to just cut it off now without any warning to any of the departments, or in one fell swoop.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, I agree with both of you a little bit, because,
I-
we're looking at, with the school, at least, we know it would be 44 cuts versus 25 cuts. So just looking at what it would cost us in unemployment, and then not knowing what cuts would have to be made on the town side too. It could end up costing us more money to not
Sure.
do this Band-Aid. Yes, Cody?
Yeah, so just to put a finer point, there are things built into these budgets that are one-off line items. Singular expenses for buying a new computer, buying new phones, buying new software, whatever that is. If it is not a recurring expense, that's where I see free cash should go towards those one-off, year-by-year things that are not necessarily reoccurring. I don't like seeing a budget where we are presented with something that we anticipate is going to be in the budget for the next year. It is a one-time expense. Like, we're opening the town hall, so we need new computers, or that needs to go to capital, or there needs to be a line item to pull that out and say, we're going to fund this from free cash. We're going to make the request to pull it from free cash, but we're not going to build in free cash because we built something into a budget that is not necessarily going to reoccur. And next year, it's just, okay, well, we had some built in there, so we're going to build in some more and spend some more. We don't have it, and we shouldn't be taking one-off, non-recurring revenues to spend for recurring expenses. That's the point I'm making there. It's not necessarily that we're pulling all of free cash spending out. It needs to be line item and very specific that this is going to be funded from free cash. And when we're talking about the budgets, we are pulling out anything that is not anticipated to be a recurring expense.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
Yeah, and Cody, I don't disagree with the goal, but we spent $2 million on our budget from free cash last year. And that's for recurring expenses. To cut that just completely this year down to zero, I just don't think is responsible. I think, cutting it back and again talking about what the policy would be going forward and to kind of wean off that is fine, but that's a huge number. You're talking about catastrophic, where you're talking level funding, never mind level services, level funding wouldn't happen. I don't see how we can change that to go a complete 180 in 1 year.
I think we need to have responsible conversations about what we have been funding from non-recurring revenues for recurring expenses. We need to identify what we have paid for from free cash that are salaries or budgetary items that were added year over year. We need to identify those, and looking at cuts, those need to be the first things that are cut. Pull those out, we can still use free cash, but we cannot continue to fund recurring things from free cash. It is financially and fiscally irresponsible.
But that's what that $2 million number is.
Yeah, but we've got to figure out where.
Dollars is recurring, right? That's in our budget. That's not the capital one-offs. That's recurring budget items. So $2 million is what we spent almost last year in recurring expenses.
And how much of that was added in the fall?
So that's what I think Paula's point was earlier, right? Is let's look at the big picture now altogether. I think I have less of an issue of spending free cash again, because I feel like it's just like the school spending school choice money. They have a debate every year, and it's a tough decision. But I think that, as long as I have the big picture all at once, I'm a little more comfortable. What I don't love is as Paula referred to, earlier, the fact that we're looking at a 1.9% increase to a budget that suddenly blows up to 7.7%. I mean, that's a huge difference in my mind. That's not at all what I had the impression of in the spring that we were approving. So I think we need all the numbers all at once. If there's things that are being deferred, which we always defer overtime, police and fire, if that's going to happen again, to have those numbers up front and to factor those into the percentage increases now.
Anyone else? Thoughts on free cash? Okay. Okay, Mike, town reserve fund transfer request.
So we have a request for $8,000 for the animal control officer. This would be for his overtime and part-time account. Brian still has his vacation time to take, and the town accountant says he will not make it through the year without a supplement.
Anyone questions, comments about the reserve fund transfer? 8,000 for overtime for the dog officer.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
I think this is just a continuation of what we were just talking about, in that we set a budget. You know what your budget is. You're supposed to work to it. I don't have a problem with the 8,000. In the grand scheme of things, it's almost a rounding error, but it's the thought process that this is okay. Let's keep doing it.
Agreed.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Steve.
I don't, Mike had a question first. I don't know if he was going to respond.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's why when I presented the budget earlier for animal control, I mentioned that we were upping the part-time salary for next year's budget. People want a 7-day-a-week animal control service, so unfortunately, we don't know when someone's going to get called in at night or Saturday and Sunday. I myself would prefer 5 days a week, 8:30 to 4:30, like everybody else. But people want the service, so he gets called in.
Who's people?
Yeah,
Residents in town.
Would they rather have a teacher or a fox caught on a Saturday night? Like,
Unfair.
so we all have to work within the constraints of the Prop 2.5, right? And sometimes the people may not get a dog officer on the weekend because of that.
So with that said, my question, Mike, is going to be, who has oversight of that budget? Who reviews it when it gets to a certain level and actually to push back and say there's no availability based on funding, et cetera.
That's why we're here tonight, because the town accountant reviewed the budget and told him he would not make it through to the end of the year based on what he's used so far for the call outs and the part-time person.
So with that said, if we were to project out based on what our stats are, how often would he say no going forward, or would he have to shut down at a certain month?
The problem is, he doesn't know when there's gonna be, strays or animals in the, animal shelter. So someone's gotta be on the weekends to go in and take care of those animals.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody.
if there was a point where there was no money in his budget to staff, and he had to do something with the dogs,
Mhm.
they euthanize the dogs, they transfer the dogs. I mean, at the end of the day, if the money's not there, he's got to find a solution.
It would be, both of those scenarios.
Okay.
Hopefully he could transfer them, but if he couldn't, he would have to euthanize them.
Or he just doesn't respond to the call?
That's what we've worked hard now with the dispatch and with the police department to limit the calls so that they're only critical calls. If a dog's running down the street and it's not bothering anybody, don't call somebody in on the weekend to get the dog. But if there's a dog bite situation or something like that, then they have to come in.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, Cody.
Mike, is that a state mandate position?
No,
So it is not a critical service that has to be provided by any law.
it's a needed position. I wouldn't say, that it's a critical position.
Anyone else? Questions on this reserve transfer? Okay, do we want to entertain a motion to recommend this reserve transfer? Not recommend. I forget, it's been a year. What do I say?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe.
I make a motion that we approve the transfer request for the dog officer of $8,000 to account 001-292-510.
Approve, that was the
Second.
word I couldn't think of. Okay, motion and a second to approve the $8,000 reserve fund transfer. Okay, going for the vote. Kevin,
No.
Steve,
No.
Trace. Trace? Tracy?
No.
Sandy,
No,
Joe,
No.
Bill,
No.
Paul,
No.
Cody,
No.
Zach,
No.
Bonnie,
No.
and myself, I am also a no, even though I'm a dog lover and it's hard. Okay,
Next,
then no.
next we have the town clerk. In the town clerk's office, we have 2 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff person. And as you can see, the part-time staff person was not there for a full year last year. So that's the difference between the $11,684 and the $21,295. And in her expenses, there was a slight increase, seminars and conferences or training for one of the staff people. And most of the other items were the same. Dues and memberships is up a little bit. And then on elections, there's one large increase. That is because of the presidential election this year. So last year it was $12,000, and this year the town clerk is looking for $22,000 for the elections. In that line item.
Mike, may I say something?
Sure.
Just also on the state election costs, that also includes the September primary. That is for your state reps and senators. So that election is included in that also.
Thank you, Lucia. Do you have anything else to add?
No. Thank you.
I have a quick question. You said there was a part-time position that wasn't there a full year last year. Was that a newly added position last spring, Mike, Lucia?
Lucia can talk more on it, but that position was in her department for a number of years, and it just hadn't been filled. So then it wasn't budgeted for. Correct, Lucia?
It wasn't budgeted for, but this is obviously, I think you all know, a very crucial year with all the elections, and we have to have the help. We have to have the help. I'm sorry, but we do. There's so much involved with mail-in ballots, and we're going to get slammed with, excuse me, just over 15,000 voters compared to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we mailed out over 8,000 ballots, and that is not just mailing out a ballot, that is checking and getting them into the state system and keeping track of them when they come back and double checking, make sure everything is correct. So then
Wonderful job.
about the library voting. That's going to happen 1 week for September and 2 weeks for the presidential. And obviously, you need staff in there to run it efficiently. The state will on deadlines also.
Mike, could I ask you quickly, could you just reduce the percentage of this document? We can't see the whole thing on our screen.
I'm
Are you able
sorry.
to do that?
Yep.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Lucia.
Welcome.
Anyone have any questions for Mike or Lucia about this budget?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Bill.
Yes.
just to go back to that part-time, maybe I misheard it. It was or was not part of the budget?
In years past, it was part of the budget. In FY '23, it was not budgeted. In FY '22.
I'm sure.
Yes. Cody?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike, but this was one of those positions that was funded from free cash in the fall.
Correct.
One other thing for Lucia, do you have any guidance or expectation on the amount of mail-in voting? Obviously, 4 years ago, we were in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes.
More. I mean, do you expect that the levels this year are going to be on par with that, like 4 years ago?
Yeah, people, it's going to be on par. I have no doubt about that. People have gotten used to the mail-in ballots now, and it's a huge convenience for them. There's also, in all honesty, people, with the way the world is now, there are people who fear going to the polls for safety purposes. We get that, we get comments about that, and I'll tell you, I anticipate that, excuse me, that there's going to be very close to the 15,000 registered voters of ballots between election and ballots going out. And I'm gonna guess 7,000 to 8,000 of mail-in ballots.
And was this position, on the budget in 2020?
No, I used a lot of my poll workers, and I think you would probably find that would have cost me to pay the poll workers to come in and was more than what we're paying a part-timer. And also, not just elections, but you're talking about the census, and there's 9,000 census that we mail out, and those individually have to go into the system, the state system, and a lot of changes being made. The volume is picking up with vital records. It's a very busy office.
Joe, I think you had a question around the same time Cody jumped in.
I did. Hi, Lucia. How are you?
How are you?
Good. So I just wanted to get a little reminder / clarification on the state election cost, the 22,000, totally understand that. But what's going into that? I seem to remember in past years we had a postage column, or maybe that was in another budget, but is a lot of that 22,000 postage, or is it something else?
No, I think there's a separate postage budget, Mike.
Yes.
Okay. But still, can you kind of just give us a little bit of a breakdown of what the 22 will get us?
So the time for mailing the ballots, when you're mailing them, you're also dealing with the regular daily activities. So we're in there Saturdays and Sundays getting those ballots out, and as they're returned, we're checking them in. You're talking about staffing the live early voting, which I get my poll workers in there to do. The staff, there's no way the staff can do it with the volume. We're on the computers with the state. You've got the live early voting staff, and then we have the advanced processing. When you get all those ballots with the live early voting and the vote by mail, we're allowed to advance process. So when the deadline hits for the mail-in, accepting mail-in ballots, we're running those ballots through on separate machines at Town Hall, which we're allowed to. If we did them all at the polls, then we're going to be there probably till 3 or 4 in the morning. And you're talking about workers who start at 6:30 in the morning, that there's going to be a very shortage of help to go through those hours. So we do the advanced processing, and a crew comes in and does the advanced processing on all of those.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Did I say the live early voting too? Yeah, there'll be a week of early voting for the primary, and then there's going to be 2 weeks straight of live early voting for the presidential.
Okay, yep, just wanted to make sure that was clear for myself and everyone else, so thanks.
Else? Okay, hearing nothing. Lucia, you are out of the hot seat.
Oh,
Thank you so much. for your
thank
time.
you. Have a great night.
You too.
Yeah.
Lucia.
Bye,
Yeah.
Lucia.
Bye.
And then next is conservation. In the conservation department, there's 2 full-time staff people. So their salary line item, and then in their expenses, one of the increases was in maintenance of conservation areas, and another one's in professional services. And a slight increase in uniform allowance.
Mike, you said this was 2 full-time, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, Bonnie.
I laughed, maybe I did. Mike, you said this is 2 full-time positions?
Yeah, the conservation agent and an administrative staff person.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions on this budget?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Cody?
just curious what goes into the maintenance and conservation areas, when in the past it's been, a fraction of that amount that's requested.
Yeah. So the main thing, it all depends on the weather conditions. I know one year we had a lot of trees come down. So it's really clearing the paths after the winter, and also maintaining Camp Edith Reed is another expense for that.
So Mike, I assume because we've only spent 1,800 so far this year, they're like waiting for nicer weather to spend
Yes.
down that line item?
Right, later in this spring.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy?
Mike, I know at the beginning when we first purchased Edith Reed, there was talk about renting out and using some of that income, to rent out to other groups
Yeah.
to help offset some of the costs for maintenance. Has that happened? Is that potentially happening?
That John is working on that this year. He hopes to have some groups that'll rent that out.
Hey, anything else?
Madam Chair,
Cody? I think I heard
I was
my
just-
voice too.
I think that might have been Paul or Steve. Just questioning what professional services entails.
So professional services or any help that the Conservation Commission will need if they have to call in an expert on an issue that they have. It's also used if John is looking at having a dam removed, helping apply for grants for that, so the engineers can develop the cost estimate on that. That's more or less what he would use it for.
So he gets consultants to write grants, he doesn't do it himself?
He would do it, but he also needs the backup information that the engineers would have to develop.
And was it Steve? Did you have a question or was it Paul?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Steve, okay. Okay, I think that might be it for conservation.
All right. Next is planning. In the planning department, there hopefully is 2 people, planning director and a full-time administrative staff.
Can you just make this deck a little smaller too? Mike?
Sure. So there's the planning director and a full-time admin staff. And then the expenses, we took out the 5,000 in educational assistance. That was an agreement with a previous planner we had. So we don't have that in the budget this year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach, I think?
So we don't have a planner, so I assume a lot of this is gonna be turned back.
From this year's budget, yes. Hopefully, we'll have one in there for next year's budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bonnie?
Mike, do we currently have an admin?
Yes,
So what's been expended so far, the 22.5 is to pay the admin?
correct.
And what are they able to do? I mean, obviously, I'm not looking for a blow by blow of their day, but without having a planner, what are they able to handle as just admin?
So more or less administrative costs, tasks. So if someone submits a Form A or they submit a subdivision plan, taking that in, processing it, and setting everything up for the meetings for the planning board.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are they
And,
working
yeah.
with-
In minutes also.
I just wanted to clarify, they're working 40 hours full-time weekly?
Yes, 37.5.
Gotcha, thank you.
I think that was Bill. Did you pick up?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Mike. I know how hard it is to fill an open position. I've been trying for months. But if the position is open, why are we giving it a pay increase?
Well, we're just trying to keep up with what the market is out there. We just had a salary survey done recently, and for a planner, it was 86,000 to 112,500.
I guess I'm more sympathetic when there's an actual body there than just an open
Yeah.
position.
I understand.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe.
Mike, remind us again how many towns are looking for planners right now?
So right now there's 26 listed in the MMA site. We've advertised there. We advertise on a planning site. There's another organization called Planners in a Pinch, and we've tried them. And now we've started reaching out to current planners. Hate to do it, but to see if we can pull from another town. So the planner.
Coach,
My point there was to just point out, like, it's been open for a long time for a very good reason, and if we don't have a competitive pay rate, we're not gonna get one.
Right. Matter of fact, if I can, Madam Chair, the planner we had was making where he is 86,000, and he got a $13,000 raise. He was coming to us, and then where he worked, they offered him a $13,000 raise, so he stayed. He didn't come.
All right. Well, maybe this is our year. We'll find
Keeping our
out.
fingers crossed.
Anyone else with the planning budget? Like a modest 1.5% increase? We can work with that.
All right.
Okay, zoning.
Zoning. Let me get the zoning up. A big budget of 300, just for any office supplies or any advertising they may have to do. It's a great, I think I probably say every year, we're lucky to have a zoning board. The chair is very professional, and most people in town probably don't even know what they do, and they do a great job.
Okay, any questions on this $300 for our zoning board? Okay, hearing none.
All right. Next we have highway. Excuse me. Just to go over the highway budget. So the highway has 13 full-time employees and 2 part-time summer employees. And the new item you see there is DPW director. And that was something that the residents voted on to institute a DPW director. So the highway department would take 14% of that cost. It's all based on the water budget, the sewer budget, and the highway budget. And 14% of that cost would be highway, and the rest would be water and sewer. And down the bottom, we also put in DPW director expenses, which total 50,000, I believe it was, and 7,000 of that would be highway, based on the same percentage. I know that Jared has increased a couple of line items due to the cost of materials going up. Road materials, he increased from 20,000 to 30,000. And surface treatment from roads from 13,000 to 17,000. And I know Jared is on if you have any questions.
Hi, Jared.
How you doing?
Do you have anything to add?
Just to maybe clarify on some of the increases, we've noticed asphalt has went up considerably compared to some of the other items. Paint for line painting. Also, just an increase in work that we plan to do over this year and next. There's been some failing culverts. One on West Hodges that just ate up about $10,000 in my budget. So there could be surprise expenses that I just want to get ahead of and be proactive about some of the infrastructure.
Mike, the DPW director line item.
Mhm.
So is that something we have to implement this year? We have to hire for it based on what we passed a town meeting? Wasn't it just to kind of that the town wanted to explore the idea?
It's in the first run of numbers, obviously. And it's a discussion item that, we'll have to look through and see.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
Mike or Jared, do you know, have the negotiations at all with the two unions happened? Have there been negotiations or discussions? I know that was one of the things that would have to happen first before we could merge the two departments. Have those discussions happened at all yet, or are we still waiting on that?
Still waiting on that. That has not happened.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm anticipating that that's going to take a little bit of time, so we wouldn't have the two, in the near future, we're not going to have these two departments merged necessarily. Is that a correct assumption?
Correct.
And then, no, sorry, the other question I had was, have we looked into any financial savings that we can possibly have with combining the two departments?
I don't know that you'll see a lot of financial savings because I don't think you're going to be able to reduce the number of employees. The only area I could see, and Jared can speak if he wants, would be snow plowing. But I don't see a lot.
Yeah, I can add that snow plowing, you probably would see some savings. As far as hiring subcontractors, you wouldn't need as many. Also, there might be some overlap between some of the equipment for certain jobs, but I mean, there'd be no way to quantify it yet.
Anyone else
Madam
have
Chair?
questions? Joe.
Looking at the cemetery wages, what accounts for the 21% increase?
So the person that's in charge of the cemeteries is in a new position within the union. So I don't have the figures in front of me, but cemeteries almost doubled in the past 2 years. It's kind of taken a life of its own. The previous person in charge had almost no record keeping or pretty rudimentary record keeping. And just to, keep someone in that position and pay them for the work they're doing, that position was created in the union, and that accounts for most of it, along with the two summer help positions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes. I don't know who that was.
is that,
Beck.
Jerry, are you gonna be maintaining that rail trail too? Is that been put on your plate as well?
I don't know if it's been in an official capacity, but I don't see any other way. It would probably be maintained by the highway.
It will be.
And when somebody passes and they buy a plot, where the funds go for that? To the town's general fund?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Hearing nothing. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Jared, you have the one other big budget coming up.
Oh, snow removal. How could we forget?
I don't have the snow and ice. Oh, there we go. Snow and ice, $80,000.
Only spent 15 this year, huh?
Jared, do you know what the number is, the final number? Well, I shouldn't say final, should I? I shouldn't have said that, but the number right now?
I do believe it's slightly over, maybe a few grand. I don't have the exact figure though.
Okay.
Oh, right, because that's only through December. Okay. Yeah, we had that one little slush storm.
Yeah, don't jinx us, Mike.
I know, I shouldn't have
And
done
the
that.
April Fool's Day storm. It's
Yeah.
gonna be
There's-
awful.
Isn't there a storm coming this weekend?
Could be.
No.
Also, to chime in too, I think most of that was the vehicle repair. We've been having a hard time with some of the older plow trucks.
Do you have new trucks in the capital? Request in the capital this year, Jared?
We do.
Okay. Anyone else have questions about snow and ice? Okay, that's it. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Next is Council on Aging. And this is one budget where a position was added. I know that Beth has right now a part-time administrative person who is funded through the budget and also was funded through ARPA. And she also has a part-time outreach counselor. And what Beth is looking to do in the new building is it would be herself, full-time administrative staff person, and a full-time program coordinator.
Is Beth with us tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Mike, again, could you make the percentage smaller on this document?
Sure.
Beth, do you have anything to add? before we ask some
Yeah,
questions?
I just want to say that, right now, we are definitely understaffed in the small building that we have right now. And going to the larger facility, we're definitely going to need more assistance. So this is a vital position, in my opinion. I have seen over the last few years that 75% of my work has been human services. So that's helping those most in need in our community. Those are our families and our seniors and caretakers who need assistance. I've also been writing a lot of grants. So just this fiscal year alone, I've raised over $70,000 that has really supported the work of the senior center. If you look at my budget, none of my programming is on there. So I get all that from grants and volunteers and being creative with some of the class fees that we have. So basically, we really need increased people. And then, a lot of the expenses were kind of a guess because I don't know what the new building is going to be. Mike and I worked together a little bit on that, trying to come up with best guesstimates as what the electricity and water and stuff like that will be.
So two items there, the purchase of services, that is for cleaning of the building. So right now, we're going from an 1,100 square foot building to an 11,000 square foot building. So that we're going out to bid soon from that. So that's as Beth said, that's what is our best guess. The electricity, we had a consultant look at that. And the new building will be all electric, so that's why it's 17,500. And the natural gas is reduced because where they are now, that was the heat was natural gas. It will be electric now, and the natural gas will be just for the generator
In the kitchen.
in the kitchen, right?
So Beth, just clarification on the staff. There was a part-time admin, I think Mike said funded, half through the budget and half through ARPA grants.
Correct.
And that position has to be 100% funded by the budget now going forward. Is that correct? And you want it to be a full-time position?
So right now she's working full-time. Half of her hours are 18 from the town and the balance is with the ARPA funding. So yes.
So that ARPA funding, though, like I said, is going to go away and be spent, and now it will have to be 100% funded by the budget.
Yes.
And then you said add a part-time outreach?
No, we have a part-time outreach currently. We need to add a full-time program coordinator.
Program coordinator, okay, I wrote that wrong.
And the other part-time is a van driver.
Part-time van driver, and the van was purchased with ARPA money.
With ARPA funding, right. And you know, we haven't been able to utilize the van because we don't have the staffing to take on the transportation coordination piece. So that's part of the program coordinator's role as well.
So I know you mentioned that you're utilizing some volunteers for your programming.
Yeah.
I remember you mentioning to us, I think at a meeting back in 2021, eons ago, that in order to, because I think someone asked you, when the new building becomes a thing and, how are we going to pay for that, the increase in programming and services that will come with the new building. And you mentioned about like 35 volunteers that you had.
Yep.
That would come back.
Yeah, right now we're using over 35 volunteers right now to run right now I have a satellite location at the VFW. We were trying to build up our programming to get ready for the new building. And right now, my bingo program, the opening and closing of the VFW, that's all being done either by senior work-off people or volunteers. And those people will be coming with us to the new center. There are certain things that volunteers can't do. A lot of the human service work we do is confidential. We're helping people with getting vital services and needs met, and that needs to be a staff person who understands confidentiality and things like that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
To follow up on that, Beth, I think we'd also talked about at some of those public meetings, renting out the COA space in the evenings to try to bring some money in. Is that still the plan? Do we have any idea of how much income that could bring in?
I have no idea. To be honest with you, that is something that, Mike and I need to discuss. I think it's definitely a possibility. Again, we need to look at the logistics of that. I know somebody from the football team reached out to me, and I think it would be great for people to use this space. But we need to find, we don't have a janitor. So who's going to open the door and lock the door? This is a multi-million-dollar, beautiful new facility that we want to make sure that we treat it well and we, make it nice for everybody for a long time. So we need to make sure we have just systems in place to make it work. But yes, that's something that we can look at. I'd like to take a look. I know the schools rent out some of their stuff. I'd like to look at their structure. I honestly haven't had the time to even think about that yet.
Yeah, Beth, right now I see this looks like a 56% increase in your budget, and Mike's talking about, us only really having like a 3% increase for everyone's budgets this year. What's that going to mean for your department?
I have no idea. This isn't a discussion that we had before. I don't know what it means.
I mean, what I do know is I know the services we offer to those most in need in the community are vital services. I don't know what that means.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
A quick question from Mike. Again, going back to all those public hearings, and we talked about, what the increases would be in terms of cleaning costs and heating and all that. And we were looking like a couple thousand in cleaning and maintenance costs has been increased, and maybe 5 or 6 in heating. And then we were also looking at a decrease in the town hall heating because it would be more efficient than what we are, working with right now. And so I thought overall it was going to be a net, a net decrease in our costs especially for the heating. Is that still the case? I mean, can we I know that the town hall, the senior center is coming on first before the town hall, but is that a possibility? Excuse me, where that could offset the costs?
Yeah, I see, well, we reduced her heating costs from 5,000 to 2,000. The problem at the town hall is they're not tearing down the town hall building now, so we got to look at some expenses there to keep the heat on.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Bill.
Mike, repair maintenance building van, 20,000.
Mhm.
It's a new building. What are we repairing?
I think what Beth's intent there was most of that would be for the van itself.
Didn't we purchase it?
We did.
What are we repairing then? If it hasn't been used, what are we repairing?
Right, we'll review that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody.
I know, Mike, you said you reduced the heating from 5,000 to 2,000, but that's not exactly true because the increase in electricity. It's costing more to heat the new building because it's an electric heat. I'm just looking at just by the numbers, the increase in the electricity from 5,000 to 17,500. That alone is like over 6% increase in the electric spend. So, is there a point where we have any type of discussion about whether or not servicing the people that utilize the services from Council on Aging, whether it is beneficial to them for us to utilize a space that we cannot afford to upkeep and maintain and properly so?
So you were kind of breaking up there, Cody. What was the final question?
The final question is there a discussion or is there any consideration for whether or not it makes sense to service the clientele from the Council on Aging from this new facility can't afford to upkeep the facility? In other words, why are we, if we can't afford to utilize the space and it's going to cost us more than we have in the budget, then do we need to have a discussion about whether or not we're utilizing the space until such time as we have the funds to actually?
Well, right now we're budgeting for it, so I think I did not say that all budgets would only be increased 3%. I said the town budget total would only be increased 3%.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kevin.
I mean, I think we're all picking at the symptoms of the same disease, which is the department heads aren't, I mean, it feels like there's a fundamental disconnect between the departmental budgets and the town financial strategy. I.e., this budget is in presentation form. We picked at some cost saving opportunities, knowing across the town the budget's tight and none of them have been, I would say, thoroughly explored yet. And I'm not saying people have time constraints, I get it. A budget that's tripling over 3 years almost. There's a fundamental disconnect in how these budgets are built at department level versus the overall town financial landscape.
The budgets as presented by the department heads are what the department heads feel they need to operate their budget. Then I go through the budgets and I let them know what we have available to fund the budget. So, the town budget increased by 6 point something percent when all the town departments submitted their budgets. And now it's my job to go through all these budgets to bring everything down to a 3% increase for the town.
And so wouldn't you want those department budgets be picked clean of savings opportunities before they come forth? I mean, as opposed to just aspirational, I would put it?
No, because people in...
If there's a disconnect between the revenue coming in and an aspirational budget, like, I for a living plan budgets for 6 factories around the world, and one of the baselines is, what's revenue going to grow with? And if it's variable labor, it flexes a certain percent with revenue changes, fixed don't. There's got to be some kind of connect, otherwise your revenue and your costs are just going to be completely disconnected.
So when the departments submit these budgets, they submit what they feel they need to operate. That's why the town budget originally was 6% increase and the school budget was 12.9% increase. I don't think the schools thought in any way that we were going to be able to fund a 12.9% increase. And I don't think there's any way we're funding a 6% increase for the town. But that's a way that the townspeople see what departments need.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Sandy.
Just a couple of questions. First, I do appreciate, that Beth is advocating for her department. I think that's, she's doing her job doing a fantastic job of advocating for the department. And then I think we would expect her to let us know what the needs are to, that even if they get cut, these are the things that we are choosing not to pay as a town, right? That, because we, continue to refuse to increase taxes and, anything else like that. But the question I do have is that, is there a, do you know what the number would be for a level services budget? What would, was that ever calculated in this?
This was my attempt at a level service budget. We're moving to a building that's 5 times the size that we're in now. We are anticipating that the number of people we serve is going to increase threefold. That is statistically what has been seen across the state for people opening up new senior centers. We're also seeing our senior population growing. Right now, we're at over 4,800 seniors. That was from the 2020 census. Where I have over 1,500 unique users. That's unduplicated seniors that are walking through the door. And we're doing this with 2 full-time people and a part-time person. This was my best attempt to look at a new building that's huge, way bigger than what we have now, our little one-room schoolhouse. And it's looking at how do we staff it so people can be serviced safely. And it was my best attempt at looking at the figures that we got from the architect to sort of project what the expenses are going to be for like heat and things like that. Yeah.
Thanks, but like I said, I do appreciate, I think you wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't advocate for what your department needs and what the folks, I know you do a fantastic job with all the volunteers that you have. It's tough when we can't necessarily, afford to to pay for what our town needs. And I don't think that's anything, you know, against you and the work that you're doing. So I do want to let you know that we appreciate everything you do. I know that the seniors appreciate you as well.
And I just want to reiterate, the work that we do isn't just for seniors. We're also the Department of Human Services, and I think that gets overlooked a lot. While we were on this meeting, I was texting with somebody who is on the brink of being homeless. So my work doesn't stop, and it's for the whole town. It's not just seniors.
We love you, Liz, and the seniors love you.
Thank you, Peter.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach, I think.
So, you know, I've already, you know, I'm sitting here listening to all this, and everybody's has their own feelings and what we should be doing. But I think, you know, I look at this from my view. My opinion is the largest population in town. She's looking for 312,000. It's about 1/10 of 1% of the budget. The town needs to decide what the priorities are. This is the money we have. What are the priorities? You know, for me, I said it countless times on this committee, to protect our life and property first, education, then everything else. But I'm not sure that's us. We should be setting that priority, the Board of Selectmen, or what. But this is the dollars we have. We can all bicker and now splitting hairs here and there, but we need to set what are the priorities? What are the must-haves? What are we gonna let go of? I mean, this bickering, you know, is gonna get us nowhere. That's what it sounds like to me at the moment.
Well, I don't think we're bickering, Zach. I think that we're just trying to get our thoughts out there about this process. At the end of the day, it sounds like there's going to be a 3% increase average for the town side budgets. So someone's going to be recommending a priority. Mike will put that forth, I guess, the priorities, because 3% average, some will be bigger, some will be smaller. And then it's going to be our job to then recommend, either go with Mike's recommendations or come up with our own. And that's what we'll be putting in front of the townspeople at town meeting.
Chair,
Yes, Cody.
just a question to Mike on priority and how are you determining where we are allocating budget, where if you're creating new positions where other departments are seeing drastic cuts, like where are you taking your direction? Or is it just, it's you, or is the select board making a recommendation of where they think that, you know, there should be priorities? How is that prioritization process worked out?
So I review all the budgets and then I set the priorities based on what the townspeople wanted. And one of the things people wanted was a new senior center, and I don't think they wanted a new senior center that wasn't staffed. So obviously this is a priority.
So when you're listening directly to the townspeople, and if they call you and voice where they think the priority should be, then you'll take that into account?
It'll be taken into account. And I think Zach said, you know, you've got public safety, education, and you have to take care of the seniors because they're the largest growing population in town. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kevin.
Mike, I think that's a slippery slope, because then the question becomes, what don't the townspeople want? Like, there's nothing in this budget that a department head's gonna say, I don't want this, it's just in here.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, Joe.
I'll let Mike finish his thought.
nope, go ahead, Joe.
So the two new positions that we're looking at, the program coordinator and the administrative assistant, where are we in the hiring process for that?
We haven't started. We have to make sure we have the funding.
Got it. And remind me when we expect the building to go online?
I'm hoping that we're in there by July. April is a date that they're supposed to be substantially complete. And after substantial completion, there'll be some things they still have to do. So I'm hoping by June or July.
Were these positions ones that we funded out of free cash?
These positions aren't funded right now. Right now, we have.
Right, okay, yep.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
Mike, this is probably gonna be a two-part comment. But I think it's a recurring theme in that when these buildings were proposed, I know we initially asked, what's it gonna take? You know, what are you gonna need in these new expanded buildings? So, you know, I'm gonna assume we're not gonna have a lot of these in the future, but it would probably be helpful to actually think it fully through and not build it and then come back and say, oh, now that we built it, we're gonna need X, Y, and Z. We probably should have thought that through in the beginning.
The only thing that wasn't completely was staffing. We weren't sure what Beth would need. Everything else was, as I said, we hired a consultant to work on the electrical and the gas expenses. We figured on what the maintenance cleaning costs would be.
So for staffing though, oh, sorry.
Well, my second point was,
Sorry, Bill.
somewhere during this discussion, you made a comment that, oh, by the way, the old town hall isn't going away. Again, wasn't that part of the pitch for the new town hall? Was, oh, by the way, this old rickety thing goes away and we don't have to worry about it. So the change of, oh, now we're going to keep it, that's an expense to the town. And it just kind of gets thrown at us like, oh, by the way, we've made this decision.
That was a
But
decision.
I don't think everybody's thought process was, oh, it's still going to be there. It was supposed to be gone. And the expense of maintaining it was supposed to be gone. Now it's here.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
Mike, I'll help you answer this one. This was a decision by the building committee to save the taxpayers money. The building fund has a surplus, and they want to get it done as cheaply as possible and save the money. I believe, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, they got a couple $1 million in surplus from the 2.5 override.
Right, and, yeah, and the cost to demo the building, I think, was $875,000.
So Bill, on that, that's something to take up with the Board of Selectmen, who I think has ultimate authority over them, I'm not sure. I think how that works, but they've decided, no, we're gonna save the $2 million to the taxpayers, and we're not gonna do it. Whether they have that authority or not, I don't know, and I agree with everything you said, Bill, that's what we voted for.
So hold on, Zach. Let
Thank
me
you.
see if I heard you correctly. You said there's a 2 million surplus from the debt exclusion for the
Correct,
project?
and Mike, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. They don't wanna spend the money, they wanna come in way under budget and not tear the building down. That's the last I've heard of it, and I haven't followed the last few meetings of the building committee, but they do have the money to do that.
And can that only be used for building purposes? It can't be used?
Correct.
It can't be turned back or anything like that to free
That
cash?
would never be charged, you would never see it on your tax base. If they don't spend it, it would never be charged. Mike, you wanna clear any of that up?
Has anybody run the, again, what's it gonna cost to maintain it, to heat it, to insure it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a building that we wanted to take offline because it wasn't safe. It had serious efficiency problems, serious, structural challenges. I can't see the wisdom of keeping that building up and paying to maintain.
I just have a quick question about the staffing. Beth, so you said that, with this bigger building, we're gonna, I guess, have more seniors coming, more members from the community. You said you could utilize volunteers to a certain extent. So with the bigger building, I foresee, more seniors wanting to utilize the programs within the building, but not necessarily maybe things that would have to do with like confidential information. So I don't know if that would increase necessarily. So possibly more volunteers could be used for the increased programs.
So what I'm looking for is somebody to help plan the programs. So as I mentioned before, about 75% of my work is doing human service work. It's meeting one-on-one with people in crisis. The remaining 25% of my time, I am scrambling to come up with programs and activities to put for our seniors. And I like to keep a balance of physical fitness, educational programs, and social opportunities. So I'm doing it, and I've been flying by the seat of my pants for many years making all this work. And none of my staff have the luxury of lunch breaks and things like that. We are stretched right now in this tiny building. When I work currently, I keep my door open so I can keep one ear what's going on at the front desk. I have a monitor where I can see what's going on in the big room while I'm meeting with people. In the new facility, my office is going to be in a corner. The building is huge. I'm not going to be able to have my eyes on everything. So we are going to need, we're going to need more staff. Most senior centers have between 6 and 7 full-time staff members. They have directors, they have assistant directors, they have program coordinators, they have 2 full-time outreach workers, and they have at least 1 or 2 clerks and a transportation coordinator and somebody to run the kitchen. When I created this budget and when I asked for this staff, honestly, I was looking for what we need. And jokingly, I said to Mike, Mike, we need this staff or they better make my walls out of rubber because we're at the breaking point at the senior center. Come in. I encourage any of you guys to come in on one of the days, and it's people are like, wow, this place is nuts. It is. We're really busy all the time. So asking for, what did I ask for? 1.5 people compared to what the other senior centers have around us. It's what we need. It's not what we want. So thank you.
Yeah, Beth, I hear you. I work at a nonprofit organization. We serve 25,000 people a year. I definitely understand what it's like. We have a food pantry, we have a homelessness prevention program, nice. And we also have a mental health counseling center. And
nice.
I know what it's like to be stretched thin with a very small staff. I currently coordinate and oversee 135 volunteers that carry out our programs day after day, and it works well because we have to stay within our budget constraints.
Right. But who's gonna supervise these volunteers? You you do, but I'm talking in a senior center.
And 30 hours a week.
Well, when we're looking at, but how many staff do you have? I mean, we're looking at.
We have 1 program manager for each program.
So we have 2 full-time people, one of them being paid out of upper and a part-time outreach worker. I mean,
I get it. I'm just saying, I understand what it's like. Yeah. We have 25,000 people we serve. You're talking about possibly 4,000 seniors in Norton. So I get that it's a lot to deal with. I know it's hard to deal with volunteers. I understand what that's like as well, but I guess I'm just trying to understand more about the amount of time it's going to take doing things that volunteers could do, or maybe that way you can spend all of your time doing the human services aspect of dealing with the confidential information.
And writing the grants. I mean, I brought in over $70,000 this year alone, this fiscal year alone, in grants that help the people in our community. I don't know. I'm stretched. I'm tired.
I get it.
We need help.
Anyone else have questions for Beth? Or Mike?
I've been in senior center many occasions.
Beth, I will, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, Cody.
Beth, I will throw this out there because it has been posed to the school committee. Pie in the sky, ask for what you want. If we're talking about override, be very specific number to fully staff that beautiful building we have, so that you don't need rubber walls and you have all the support you need.
Thank you.
I'd like to see that number, because I'd like to see that number in an overlay discussion.
That number would be bigger than what we have here, so.
That's what
I'll
I'd
give
like
you
to see.
Chippy on it, okay?
I would love to see that, because I'd love for this town to be what everybody wants it to be and everybody says they want it to be. And we just need to know what the price tag is for what they said they want.
I'll work on that, thank you.
Anyone else?
So here's the thing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you so much, thank you.
And last but not least, the Veterans Department. And in the Veterans Department, you have the Veteran Services Officer and one part-time administrative assistant position. And as far as expenses, the expenses have remained level, actually dropped a little bit from the previous year. And then veterans benefits, 200,000. Obviously, Estelle doesn't know who's going to come in and need assistance, so that's a variable number. We do receive 75% reimbursement from the state for anything that is spent out of that fund for benefits under Chapter 151, Estelle, if I said. And Estelle does a great job, and also Ann Simpson. I know Estelle would love to have her full-time. She does a great job.
Chapter 115, Mike.
That's one.
Anyone have questions for Estelle? Hi, Estelle. Thank you.
Hello.
Want to add anything?
No, I feel like we're level. You know, the increases in salaries are just contractual, and we're just moving forward with what we have.
Okay,
Madam
anyone
Chair?
have any questions? Yes.
That was me.
Joe.
Yes. Mike, you said we get 75% of the veterans benefits back. That goes into the general fund, not back into this budget, right?
Right. And Estelle's done a great job in documenting everything, so we've never had a year where we didn't receive our 75%.
Excellent.
Okay, anyone else?
And
Okay. Memorial and vets.
get to that. And Memorial and Vets, $2,000, the same as last year. And Estelle has oversees this budget, and this would be for any expenses that come about for any of the parades, and also I believe Estelle purchases flags out of this fund also.
That is correct for the town. I should say town flagpoles.
The wreaths during the holiday season, is that donated?
What, the wreaths?
The wreaths, yeah, at
Yes.
the cemetery?
Yes, that's Roots Across America and chaired by Pat Tarantino. We raise the funds through donations from businesses and community, and that covers all of the cost.
A lovely program.
Yes.
All right, any other questions for Estelle?
Estelle, you run the greatest veterans service in the town of Norton, and you do a good job keeping our veterans occupied, right?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Estelle.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Mike,
That's it.
that's everything for tonight.
Sure.
When will we start reviewing warrant articles?
We can start that at the next meeting, do some of the, usual ones.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
Yes.
Cody.
I just have one question that we didn't, that I still have, and it was mentioned in the chat as well. Who has the authority to not tear down the building when the funds were approved by town for the override, including tearing down the building? Like, where did that authority come from, and is that something that we can revisit with whoever made that decision?
Yeah, it definitely can be revisited, be a discussion between the select board and the, building committee.
So the planning board, or the select
Okay.
board, the select board was the authority that ruled not to tear down the building.
No, it was the permanent building committee.
So they made the recommendations, but it's the select board that ultimately they report to.
Well, yeah, I would say, I don't know whether until the budget gets further along, I don't think, it really was an item that came up between the select board and the building committee. But as we get further along in the building, we'll know whether there's gonna be a need for any more of those contingency funds.
But has the decision been made as far as, like, when the construction schedule is planned out, the Gantt chart is planned out, within that planning, there is no tearing down the existing building?
Right now, the last decision of the building committee, made several months ago was not to tear it down. So that's something that'll have to be revisited.
Thank you.
In the past, there's, Madam Chair,
Yes, Bonnie, go ahead.
I served on the permanent building committee for a bit, and I'm not sure if anybody else, Sandy, were you attending meetings for a bit as well? So my understanding, I believe from Dinah's own language, was that the permanent building committee serves at the pleasure of the select board. And so they do oversee it, but they sort of empowered the permanent building committee to make decisions. However, also, we had a FinCom representative there to be able to relay information back to this board, and also just to streamline communication. And that was also the case with school committee, and that was also because there's often building projects that have to do with the school committee, and of course there was when the new facility was being built at the high school. And so I'm not sure that there's a school committee person still on or attending meetings. And also someone from the select board, I believe Jack attended for a while. I believe Steve Hornsby might have been the newer person. I'm not sure if he still is. Anyway, there was, he's still attending.
Yes.
So he would be aware and hopefully informing the rest of the board about sort of keeping them updated so that information kind of flows both ways if needed. And so it should be that, they're aware of what's going on. That may not be the case to know that this is what's happening for the building, or that the building is not scheduled to be or planned to be torn down anymore. So I just wanted to mention that because there was some question that you had about Cody about that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Paul.
So, Mike, my understanding is that there was a chance that the buildings were gonna be way over cost, so they did some cost cutting and, saving measures when they built the buildings, and they actually came in far under what they expected. But wasn't the funding for the town hall always part of the building committee to tear that down? And I think it's a slap to the people if it doesn't get torn down. And that's what we voted on. I thought that's what the discussion was right out of the gate, that was just unsafe to keep up and it really should be relooked at. And I would ask for you to bring that back up at the selectmen in a strong way and try to go ahead and move that forward.
I can understand removing that from the budget if we were going over budget, but to hear that we're going to be under budget and the cost to tear down that is well within the amount we are under budget that the town approved is about the stupidest thing ever. It doesn't make any sense. The voters gave the approval to spend up to that amount, including the tearing down of that building. And now we're saying, we're going to save you money by not tearing down the building, even though you told us that that's what you want.
And part of that, Cody, also has got to be to solidify the wall between the old town hall and the new part of the building as well. And again, if the funding's there, let's get it done and not nickel dime the project.
Yep, agreed.
Right, because now we'll have to add into the budget, maintaining that building, and we don't have the money for that.
Or down the road, ultimately tearing it down anyway.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
Not only, I think, and I could be wrong on this, they engineered around leaving that building up. So the whole plan, they have the layout there has been engineered leaving the building up. So I'm not sure, what is entailed at this juncture.
So I'm not sure.
We'll follow up with the building committee.
Thanks, Mike.
On that same note, what was the plan? This might have been discussed last year. What was the plan with the old senior center? Is that going to be torn down or sold?
It can't be sold because that property, there's the senior center, there's the school garage where they park their equipment. There's another shed behind there that's used to store equipment for the highway department, and the salt shed's there.
Right.
So the property can't be sold. So right now there are some nonprofit groups looking at utilizing the building and maintaining it until we decide what we want to do with the property.
We rent it out?
We possibly could rent the building. We can't sell it.
Okay.
I noticed that it's missing a lot of shingles. Bare wood showing.
Okay, anyone else have questions, comments for Mike before we look at the minutes that I sent you all, and I'm sure you all reviewed? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. See you next
Mike.
week, or Thursday.
See ya.
Thursday.
See you Thursday.
I'll be there Thursday for the meeting, taking notes, as always.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, minutes from March 4th. So the first thing I noticed, I was very confused because the attendance was based on March 11th's attendance, it looked like. So I tried to fix it. I hope I got it right. So I had on March 4th, this was our very short meeting. It was like a half-an-hour meeting. I had Kevin, myself, Tracy, Sandy, Joe, Bill. Were you at that one? Yes, I thought so. Paul, Cody, Zach, and Bonnie, and I only had Steve as absent. Is that correct?
It's almost like Bill's name should have a question mark in it in the minutes, the way you said it. Like Cody, Sandy, Bill?
And that was the one I wasn't sure. I think maybe he came late or something. I don't know.
The question
Okay.
mark and the telephone.
I was there.
He was there. Okay, so yeah, so it seemed like the attendance though, like basically mimics the meeting from last Monday. So I'll have her fix that. Anything else anyone saw in these short minutes? Okay.
Madam Chair?
No. Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth a big deal, but there was a couple places where schools, referring to the department, I guess, was capitalized. I don't know if that's necessary or not.
Okay.
That was all I found, though.
All right, I'll go through and fix those.
That was in the draft warrant section, paragraph
Okay.
4 and 5.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, or just someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Joe.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the March 4th, 2024 meeting as amended.
Second.
Right? Roll call. Kevin?
Yes.
Steve?
Dane.
Trace?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Cody?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I too am a yes, 9 yes, 1 abstain. Okay. Thursday, we have a joint meeting. You saw my email with the select board and school committee at the community room in the Norton Public Library at 7 o'clock. It is an in-person meeting. There is going to be a link for a live stream, but I believe it's webinar format. So not Zoom like this, to be able to participate in the meeting in an easy way, I would think. So let me know if you cannot make it. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you all then. What was that, Cody?
Are we allowed to send questions via proxy text message? And who's going to be my text message?
Not me.
Dang it.
I don't know. Are we allowed to do that? Like participate remotely through somebody else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Zach.
Well, Cody, we're in an open meeting right now, and you got something that you want brought up, mention it, let me know.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we can.
I can't ask the questions on the presentation I haven't. I wish I could.
No, yeah, you
Otherwise,
can definitely just share questions and we can post them on Thursday. Okay, anyone have anything else, or does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Paul, I just have one question.
Steve.
I know in the email, we got the financials, the latest financials for the school committee, but the email has expired. Is there a way we can get that information printed for Thursday's meeting?
The email that went today, the email that we got today?
It was an email that, I don't know her name, the business manager sent with the financials and balance of accounts.
Okay, the email expired, you said?
Yeah, it looks like it's not available any longer, so
Latest financial report you need, okay.
if we can get that in print for Thursday's meeting, it'd be great. If not, I get it short notice.
Okay,
They've been
and it
pretty
looks
good.
like I can pick up the packets that they emailed today. It looks like I can pick them up, printed packets for you all. It looked like they were gonna have copies for all of us, so I will run by town hall and pick those up and hand those out on Thursday, so you all don't have to print it out.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I believe that packet was the same one that I was given at the school committee meeting the other night. It looked like it.
I think it was, yeah. I think you're right. Okay. Anyone
Madam Chair.
else? Yes, Joe.
I make a motion that we adjourn the March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Finance Committee.
I'll begin preparing the charges against Mr. Pleasant. And please find Cecil Fox.
Okay. Was there a second to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Okay, roll call to adjourn. Kevin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes,
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
Bill,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes, you miss Paul.
Hot tea and donuts.
Zach, Bonnie.
Tea and donuts, not yet, yes.
Oh my God, and I too am yes, we are adjourning.
I did,
Good
yes.
night.